Hi guys. So a bunch of you are asking if I can show a video of how I make my sourdough bread. And there's a ton of videos online with other people making sourdough, but apparently a bunch of my friends have been asking, they want to see how I'm doing it because it is really, really easy. I don't make anything complicated because I don't have time for that. So I will show you how I do it from beginning to end. Oh, and by the way, when I show you what I do, keep in mind, and I'll try to show you as I go along, it is so forgiving, this bread. I can't believe I've made it, like the recipe changes almost every time I make it because it depends on how much starter I'm beginning with. So I just then will adjust the flour and the water based on that, and it still turns out so good. Even my family loves it, except for one stubborn little kid who won't eat it. But he says he doesn't like sourdough. And my sourdough is not even sour, I don't think, and nobody else in the family thinks so either. They just said it's really good, so he's just kind of stubborn. But anyway, everyone loves it, and it's super flexible. So I will show you how I do it. So I just pulled my starters out of the fridge and added some einkorn flour. This one, I put a little bit too much water in it. It's a little bit runny, but it's really not a big deal. But as you can see, this one is a little bit thicker. And then before I did that, I pulled some starter out and put it in this bowl, and I'm gonna feed this and beef it up because I wanna make bread again tomorrow. So now I wanna add more flour to this. You don't wanna give it too much, so you wanna put around the same amount of flour in as you have starter in there. I never weigh anything, I just guess. So that's about how much I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna add some water, stir it all up good, and then in a couple hours I'm gonna feed it again because I have a friend who wants me to give him some starter when he comes tomorrow night. So this is my filtered water. I'm just gonna start out with a little bit. What you're going for is like a thick pancake batter. And this is whole grain einkorn flour that I put in here. Okay, so that's about right. Just a thick, kind of gloopy pancake batter consistency. And then I cover it with a plastic wrap so it doesn't get kind of hard in there. See the bubbles? Now I'm just gonna add a little more because I wanna beef this up before I use it tomorrow. So I fed these starters in my jars again last night just because I was running out and I didn't have that much starter left. And I just pulled some out to give to a friend. But look at how bubbly. That just makes me so happy. Look at those bubbles. And then this is the one I fed again last night, and I'm gonna give it a little more again this morning. I'll probably feed it one more time just because I don't need the bread until late afternoon today. So I'm gonna feed it one more time after church and let that set a couple hours, and then I'll make the bread late morning. So I'm gonna continue feeding it with my whole grain einkorn flour because it's the whole grain flour that you especially want to sour for the longest time during the day because that's what has some of the anti-nutrients or whatever in it that could be not as easy to digest, but it's also what has the most nutrition in it. But this way it unlocks all that nutrition as it sours throughout the day, because then when I actually go to make the bread, I could add more of the whole grain flour, but usually what I do is I add then about, half of the volume of flour ends up being, or maybe a little bit less than half, ends up being the white, organic, unbleached flour. And so I'm just gonna feed this a little bit more. Anyway, and that makes a little bit lighter loaf, but it still has plenty of the whole grains for nutrition. So I think that's about right. I'm gonna feed this, and again, now that I fed, I'm gonna add some more water and stir it up, and then I'll do this one more time after church. I don't normally have to give it this many feeds. It's just that I was running low on starter, and I wanted to kind of beef that up. Also, this just makes it really extra active. The more feeds, sourdough starter loves to be fed, and that's what makes it so extra bubbly. So last night I fed it 2 times. I'm gonna feed it 2 times today before I make the bread, but normally I only feed it 1 time before bed, and then in the morning I sometimes just bake with it right away. Okay, so I got this all fed, and I'm gonna cover it again and let it sit until I get home from church. And this is super forgiving though. Like, you don't have to do timing just right with this. This is what I love about it. You don't have to have an exact amount of starter when you're done. I'll show you later how I do it. It's super easy. but I do love that this is gonna have time to sour or ferment throughout the day. And what's cool about it is that it still doesn't turn out to be a really sour tasting loaf, which I don't mind, but some people do. And it still just tastes, I'm obsessed with it. I love the taste so much. So anyway, I'll show you what I do next when I get home. Okay, I forgot to show you, but I just fed it one more time and it's about 10:30. I'm using my einkorn flour that I ground myself in my food mill, or my grain grinder, whatever, Nutrimill. And then for the rest, I'm gonna use the organic white unbleached bread flour. So I stirred it down and put it in here to see how much I have. And it looks like I have about 4 cups, so that's gonna affect how much of the other flour that I put in my bosh. You don't have to use a bosh to mix it, it makes it easier, but you can do it by hand if you want, or you can look up some recipes for no-knead sourdough. Okay, so in here I put a 1/2 cup of warm water, 2 tablespoons of honey, and a teaspoon of baking soda. This is a combination of several different recipes that I kind of combined to make my own based on trial and error. So this 1/2 cup of warm water is based on, like I said, how much starter I used, and that's going to also determine how much extra flour I put in. I'm going to put notes below this video and show you how I make those adjustments. It's super easy, but also at the last minute, after I put the flour and this honey mixture in here and knead it, I may have to add more water or flour at that point too. You just gotta go by how it feels. So I've got the 3 cups of unbleached organic bread flour in here, and my honey mixture is dissolved, so I'm gonna put that in. And now I'm gonna start mixing it. Actually, I almost forgot the salt, and that is very important. So now I'm gonna mix it. So I did it for a few minutes and I'm feeling it and it feels really good. It doesn't feel too dry or too liquidy, although I'd rather have it too soft than too dry, but this feels just right. It's a little bit sticky still. Now I'm gonna use this little doohickey to get it out of my bosh bowl and put it into this bowl after I butter it. So I've got it in the bowl, and I probably should have used a bigger bowl because as soon as it bubbles up a little bit, it's gonna be a little too high. But I'm going to be turning this every hour, so I'll show you. I'm gonna cover this and set the timer for 1 hour. Because my bowl is kind of small, I'm going to spray this plastic wrap with some avocado oil just in case it rises up so it won't stick. So now it's going to sit like this for 1 hour. So now this gets turned, I'll show you how, once an hour, 3 times. So after an hour I do it once, another hour I do it, and then the last hour I do it, and there's some more steps then to get ready to bake. So this is how easy it is. You just take the edges and pull them over on each other. Pull this edge over to the middle, and then a third, and then the fourth. And that's how long it takes. You cover it back up and leave it for another hour. But I usually do it a couple more times, just because I kind of like playing with this dough. It feels so good. Okay, so that's it. You don't want to do it too much. I just do it a couple extra times. So now I'm going to set the alarm for 1 more hour. Otherwise I'll forget. Okay, so I've turned it one at a time, and now this is the last turn. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. Just bring the edges into the middle. And then what I have is a pan that's all ready to go, that's about the same size as the one that I'm gonna bake the bread in a little bit. So I put some parchment paper inside this pan, and now I'm gonna take the spread out and kind of turn it in on itself. And so I have the part that I was turning in on itself kind of on the bottom, and then the top will be like a nice ball, and I just kind of play with it a minute and get it kind of nice and round on top. And then I put that seam part down in this pan, and this will just sit here and rise for a little bit. And then I'm gonna put this in the oven for 45 minutes at, I think it's 475, but I have to double check that. It'll be all below the video, all the instructions. And once that's heated, I'll show you what's next. Okay, so my cast iron pan has been in the oven heating up for 45 minutes, and it is 450. I wasn't sure about the temperature, and that's what it was. And then now I'm gonna get this pan out very, very carefully. I'm gonna get this cover off. Now I'm gonna lift the bread that's in this pan over into the cast iron. And then I'm gonna slit it with my little tool I have here. Come close, Case.
Not gonna lie to you, Mom, shadows here are not working with you.
Well, I can't help it. We gotta do it, because I gotta show them. Can you back up a little or something?
Well, it's actually your hand, so...
There. Look how pretty from the top. Okay, and then,
Wow.
after you give a slit, a couple slits, you gotta then do this to steam it. And this kind of gives it a really pretty rise and a pretty brown top. So then you cover it, and we're gonna put it in here for 20 minutes. And then you're gonna uncover it for another 20. Look how pretty. So I took it out of the oven and took the lid off earlier, and now I am checking the temperature. We wanna get it to 185 internal temp. And I don't think it's gonna be quite there yet. Nope, so I'm gonna put it back in for a few minutes. Okay, it's at 185 now, so I'm gonna lift it out and put it over on this rack. And you have to leave it for a while before you cut it, otherwise you'll smush it. So we're having friends over, so we have some snacks ready and a maple flan ready to go. So I'll show you how it looks. I'm gonna get it over there. Okay, so this is how it looks out. Hubs, say hi.
Hey.